4,000 kilometers, 103 hours, economy, no showers. My train trip across Canada. So I'm originally from the east coast of Canada, and I had to go see my parents and go visit back east. So I had to think of what am I going to do or how am I going to get there. So I wanted to visit Toronto, that wouldn't be one of my stops. But I had to figure out how to get there. I've flown across the country multiple times and didn't really feel like doing it again. Driving, that's a long drive. I didn't feel like that either. Then I was on YouTube watching some videos, and all of a sudden Kara and Nate's video popped up when they actually went across Canada in the train on the Canadian. And that just rung my bells. It's like, that's perfect. Why not give it a try? So I looked in the prices and decided to take the plunge into it. A long trip across Canada in a train. So of course there's 3 different classes on the train that you can take. There's Prestige, there's the Sleeper Plus, and Economy. So of course, being me and being a little cheaper, I decided to take Economy, which is around $800. The prices do vary occasionally throughout the season. Sleeper Plus is $1,500 to $2,000, and that you basically get a nice bed. And that's the fold down thing, nothing insane, but it's just something you can sleep on. And then of course Prestige is the ultimate class where you get the luxury of luxuries. It's about $5,000 a person. So I went with the Economy one. It was not that bad. So after arriving in Vancouver and getting ready to go to the train station, you went to Pacific Central Station. So I got there, checked in my luggage, and they made it quite known to me that I wouldn't be seeing my luggage for about 4.5 days. So I had everything in my bag ready to go. So I dropped my luggage off and got in line with everyone else. Of course, waiting in line, chatting with people, we're just comparing tickets, and they're showing their numbers and everything else. And I'm noticing mine doesn't have the same as theirs. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, that's whatever, we'll see how it goes. So I get to the front of the line after waiting, and they look at mine and they ask, what are you in? And I'm like, well, I'm in Economy. And they're like, oh, no, that's not your line. You're over there. So basically went over to the corral. So I'm standing there with everyone else and basically just waiting on time. And then they all went in, the upper classes all got in their train, and then it was our turn. So once onto the train, in Economy class, there's only 3 carts I was allowed into. There was 2 sections of seating, and there was another one with the observation deck and a little bit of a restaurant store sort of thing you can go into. As someone in Economy, I was not allowed into the other classes. So I was stuck in those 3 train carts for the next few days. The initial look into it was pretty nice. It was nice big chairs, like really comfortable. Actually, my butt never got sore the entire time. They were a lot bigger than airline seats, probably like comparable to first class, and you had lots of leg room. Like I compared sitting into like one of the exit rows in a plane. Like I had enough room to stand up. Baggage was good up top or at my feet, and I was lucky enough that the train was actually not that packed. So I never actually had anyone sit next to me the whole time. So I actually had 2 seats for me the whole time. So when you're in the train, there's only 2 bathrooms per cart. So it was a shared bathroom, of course, and it's not much room. You had enough room just to change quickly if you wanted to. I was wearing my pajama pants some nights just because it was comfy and whatever. I'm on the train, so I'm not too worried about it. It was half packed. And of course, one thing on this train that I was so stoked to see was the views, because I knew they were going to be really good. And especially starting off in BC, that was going to be the highlight of the whole trip. So leaving Vancouver, of course, just left Vancouver. It was nice and slow, and actually you'd see lots of people waving to you, and that was a lot of fun too. So anytime you're at a stop and anyone was there, usually you're getting a couple waves back. So it was really friendly to see that. And of course, the train kept going on, and the one bad thing about being on the Via train is that CN owns the lines, so they get right of way. So anytime you come up to a split track, you're usually sitting there waiting for cargo to go by, and there was a lot of that. So in the actual first bit of it, we arrived to Kamloops, our first actual real stop, 2 hours behind. Now there's lots of little stops all through the way. I can't name them all. There was just so many random little stops where one person get off, one person get on, but it goes across Canada, and sometimes that's the only option, especially when you're in the middle of nowhere, like I was further on in the trip. On the next full day there, that's when it got really good, because then we were in the mountains in BC, and I'm telling you, they were some of the best views I've ever seen in my life. There was no cell service, so that was actually pretty nice, so you didn't have to worry about your phone, and it was just beautiful. There was this one spot where there's a waterfall we went by that they actually slowed down for us to actually get a view of, and then a really good highlight was seeing Mount Robson. Mount Robson is 12,972 feet tall, and it's the highest mountain in the Rockies in Canada, and it was something awesome to see. There was lots of beautiful scenery out there. We never saw any animals. I saw maybe a couple through later on in the trip, but never saw any bears or anything else like that. But the views in BC, oh my god, they were just the best. Our first big stop that we could actually get out and go walk around was Jasper, and that was just beautiful. I've been to Jasper a couple times, and the scenery never gets old. So while we were there, actually, they said they're going to be there for an hour, hour and a bit, just to drop off some passengers, and they were actually moving a locomotive. When we first started, we had 3 of them just to get through the mountains because it was just such a crazy journey in elevation. So we had some time, so I ran off, got some Tim Hortons, got some Subway, got some food, same with other people, and then we made it back to the train. And they do take all the luggage out of the train actually just so people can get theirs and everything. So I saw my bag there once, but thankfully it was kept on the train. I didn't have to worry about it. But as soon as we took off from Jasper, that's when the views really got wild. Like, it was some of the most beautiful scenery I've ever seen. If you ever plan on doing it, that first bit, Vancouver to Edmonton, is the highlight. And sitting in the park was incredible. There was one point actually where we're pulled over on the side waiting for trains to pass. Sometimes they can be up to 200 train carts in or there. So yeah, they take a while. And they're not moving quick, some of them fly by, you can't even count them. Some of them we were trying to count, and you'd get about to 150, then you'd start going cross-eyed. And there's this one spot where we stopped, and it was just beautiful. The mountains are there. We went back to the observation deck that has a nice beautiful dome in it, and that's where I spent a lot of my time because it was just beautiful. You could socialize, have a beer, and the views were just insane out of there. And especially in Jasper, it was one of the highlights for sure. Like, the pictures I took, I just couldn't believe the scenery, and you're never gonna see it. There's no roads out there, so you basically have to take the train, and it's so worth it. Of course, once I got moving out of Jasper, the mountains were still there, and they were just some gorgeous views. We started heading out towards Hinton, and that's when the mountains started to end, and we got back into the Alberta scenery. And it was some gorgeous scenery out there. Like, we were right about sunset going through there, and it was just, there were some beautiful spots. Once again, I was up in the observation deck, sitting there, just taking pictures and just chatting with everyone up there. You meet some fascinating people traveling, and on that train, it was just awesome. By the time we actually got into Edmonton, we were 5 hours late getting into Edmonton. So yeah, there were some crabby people who wanted to get off at Edmonton, and of course there's some people that we met along the way that just were late and had to wait in Edmonton for 5 hours. And of course it was playoff time. It was about May of last year in 2024 when I did this. So yeah, there were some people angsty for the game and everything there, but it is what it is. That's the one thing they told us, and they say right in the thing when you actually buy it is be expected for delays. Delays will happen. They're rarely on time, and just be aware of that. Don't book anything for that day you arrive. So it was a little later in the night when we left Edmonton. It was probably around 11 to midnight. So I tried to get some sleep. Thankfully, all you have to do is put some earplugs in and an eye mask. Like, I was sitting up in my chair. I never really got a good sleep the whole time. I just rested my eyes, but it is what it is. I was in economy, so I kind of expected not to really get a good sleep, but just slept and tried to keep it calm. I knew it was just is what it is. I wasn't getting stressed over it. And when I woke up the next morning, we were basically in Sask already. And we just crossed over the border. It was raining. It was a little brushy, so it wasn't, the best, but there's still some nice scenery there. It's not as flat as everyone thinks, actually. There's some nice combine pouring on the side of the hills, and then there were some elevators and everything else. It was actually pretty nice just to go around and see it. And then we pulled into Saskatoon. That was one of our next stops. We weren't allowed out of the train here. I think they just unloaded a couple of people at a time and just did small little things. The one weird thing in Saskatoon was you pulled up and then you backed up a lot and then you went right forward. I don't know if they had to switch lines. It was something weird they had to do. Some other people who had been there before described it, and they said, no, this is what they usually do here. But it was nice to go through there. It was a little rainy and ucky through there, but I did get this nice picture going through Sask, right through there, and of course in the observation cart. Now, I thought I was in the middle of nowhere. I thought I'd been there before and done it, but the train brings you to literally the middle of nowhere. Like, your phone doesn't have any service, and when it does, you open it in your maps and you're like, where am I? There's no towns near you. You're just, even the smallest little hamlets are like, I have no clue where that is. There's no real road showing. So that's one thing you do have to get used to, which was actually nice to get a break from the phone. The one thing that you'll notice too is a lot of mines. There was a few mines we passed. I'm not sure what they were. Like I said, you couldn't really get much service to figure it out, but they're probably potash mines or coal mines being that far up there. Still, there was some nice scenery up there. It was still really nice to see. And then near the border, we were waiting on one of the stops again. So we were waiting, there's a train went by, and then we're waiting again. And we're thinking there's another train coming. So we were looking at the lights, and one of the staff actually told us what the lights actually meant. So if there's certain lights, it means you're good to go, you're clear, you gotta wait, there's another train, and there's different combos of lights. So we're looking at the lights, and we're like, those mean clear, don't they? And we were like, yeah, that's what he said. So we're looking, waiting, and we're like, looking at the time, and we're like, there must be another train coming, but it's like, it's been so long, why are we waiting? So we're looking back, and then we see some CN people at the actual power box. So we're like, oh my God, something must must have broke so they can't switch the rails around or something weird happened. And then we see an ambulance and we're like, ooh, that's different. So it turns out someone in one of the back carts had an emergency, so they had to be taken off in an ambulance. And yeah, I'm not too sure where they went because we were in the middle of nowhere, like middle northern Sask. So yeah, it was really interesting. Hopefully they made it good. I don't really know what happened. All I know that it was an ambulance call was made. And also being in an economy, the lunch menu and food menu was not the best. It was just very basic. I basically lived off Mr. Noodles and chips, water, beer, and wine the whole time. So that was basically it. I didn't want to get gunned and get too liquored up because if you get kicked off, guess what? The RCMP will be meeting you, and you'll also be dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and good luck finding a ride because these towns are the middle of nowhere. So that's one thing I really wanted to watch out for, is just have a couple drinks, don't get carried away, because if you do get kicked off, like, that's not going to be good. You're going to be stuck somewhere really bad, and good luck. I doubt there's a hotel. Like, it's just be cautious because, yeah, that's not something you want on your resume to deal with. So as we were going through Manitoba, I didn't really get the best pictures there. It was mostly at night and just tired and just getting worn out already from just sitting in a chair the whole time. You could walk around and socialize a little, and that was really nice. I met a lot of nice people around there and a lot of interesting stories as to why are you on the train? Why didn't you just fly? Why didn't you just drive? So there's a lot of interesting stories you meet, and it's always nice to talk to people on your travels and just see what their story is too. We arrived in Winnipeg in the morning around 7 a.m. So there was a stop there, and they actually do a crew change there. So they switch everyone out and clean the train a little bit. And I was actually more happy that I could actually get some sleep in. So I just cuddled up onto my seats and just put my eye mask on, earplugs in, and just tried to get a little bit of sleep while we were sitting there, which actually worked. I got a little bit. The one thing too in the observation deck is at nighttime, you cannot see the stars. We were all hoping you could see it through, and they turned some lights off, but there was just a little bit of glare and you just couldn't see it. So, but it was still nice there. It was pretty drafty and pretty cold, so that's one thing in the winter. If it was really, really cold, that would have been a little freezing in there. So after that, we got to Ontario, and I knew that was going to be the long haul because Western Ontario is just nothing really. And that's where you actually experience the real middle of nowhere, because there are some stops where you're looking up the town, you take a picture of it, and you're like, I can't believe it. You're looking, the nearest town is like just far away. It was also pretty crazy to see all the actual cottages out there on the lakes, especially some that are in the middle of islands. So I don't know how they even got the timber out there to even make them, but it was pretty cool seeing all that. There's lots of different fishing lodges up there, so definitely some nice scenery and probably incredible fishing. So it was really cool to see. There was a couple hunters that got off and on the train at different spots, and then came the wild part of the train ride. So we were in Ontario, and it was about midnight, 1 o'clock. I was trying to sleep. People got on the train. So cool. People got on and off all the time. I'm just trying to sleep, trying to enjoy my trip. So all of a sudden I sleeping, and sort of right next to me, I hear one of the train guys come in, and he starts giving it to this guy about smoking. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. And I didn't realize what he did. Turns out he went between the train caps and decided to light a cigarette and smoke, which is very much not allowed on the trains. So he got an earful, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. Let's see what this brings in the morning. So after the guy leaves and gives him hell, he gives a couple muttering to himself, and I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be interesting. Let's see how this all goes. Next thing, it's 7 a.m. I'm sleeping, and all of a sudden I hear I'm like, oh, okay. And then I hear a shut up, shut up, shut the F up, shut up, shut the F up. And I'm sitting there, I got my eye mask on, I'm sleeping, and I'm froze, because I know this guy's right sort of beside me, and I'm just like, oh God, what's he doing? What is going on? And he is freaking the fuck out. And I'm just like, what's going on? It turns out people were just up talking. It was 7:30 a.m. and they're just talking. They weren't even yelling, they weren't being loud, but this guy just had it, and he did not want to deal with it. He got up, started yelling in their faces and screaming at them. And I was just sitting there like I was frozen, because it was just the wake up, the way I woke up, I didn't know what to do. And so he sat back down, I heard them storm by, and next I heard the train guy come by again, the same guy, and he gives him hell again. And this guy's bitching that he couldn't sleep, and I couldn't sleep, they're making noise. And this guy's like, well, it's 7:30 in the morning, like they're gonna be up. Like, we do give you earplugs, ear masks, and he was still bitching and complaining. So I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. So I had to get up and then brush my teeth, and the guy's sitting right in, like, like beside me sort of thing. And I'm like, this is great. I get up and I get my actual toothbrush and stuff out, just trying to be the quietest I possibly can. Get to the bathroom change, and then I go to the cart just to get some food, and I sit there and eat it because I'm like, I don't want to be around this guy, make any noise and piss him off so he yells at me again. So the train keeps on going, and he's just not in a mood. He's got his shoes off, his feet on this chair, and he's just grouchy, twirling a cigarette, and he's just got that vibe with him where it's like, holy crap, he is not loving life at all. So then I go to the observation cart again, getting some food, and this guy's talking to one of the managers in the train. So I'm like, hey, whatever, he's probably bitching about whatever. Not my problem, just don't touch me, don't touch anyone else. So we get to one of the stations, and then he gets his bags and goes off. Like, okay, is that a good sign? Go talk to one of the girls, and she said, yep, he's leaving. He's having someone come pick him up for Toronto, which we were already so far away. I think it was 5-6 hour drive even get where we were. So he had to get someone to come pick him up and drive him back to Toronto. And I'm just like, that, buddy, you could have been so much better on the train. I know it's painful, they stop a lot, there's delays and yada yada, but like, still, like, we're not that bad. Thankfully, he was gone, and I asked some of the other ones, what would happen in that case? And it was sort of like I explained earlier, where we would have just calmed the situation down if something got crazy and had the RCMP come aboard, point him out, have a good day, take care. And like I said, you could be in the middle of nowhere. You could even just get thrown off the tracks. It's just like, here, you're at this small little town, bye, figure it out, because we've had enough of you. That could easily happen too. So you really got to be careful how you act on the train. So of course, more of the scenery in Ontario was really, really gorgeous. And we get one little treat. We actually had the other Canadian train pass us. So it's Canadian number 1. We were on number 2. So that was really cool. You saw everyone in their carts too, waving at each other. It was really cool to see that train, and this scene in Ontario was really cool. There was lots of views there too. I got to see a couple little animals and the Canadian Shield, which is pretty cool. It's basically just a big rock that covers all of Ontario and central Ontario. So there's trees sparsely growing out of it and water and everything. It's really beautiful scenery. And there's some points where the trees are just overhanging, like they're just right on top of you. So we were thinking they must come through with some big chainsaws just to cut everything down, because those trees would take out the observation decks, because each of the classes did have an observation deck as well. So we were finally getting close to Toronto. And of course, the traffic was just getting worse and worse and worse. We were pulled over waiting, and there was one time where we were pulled over and the guy even came on over the announcement, we're going to be a bit here, we'll open the doors, get some fresh air. If you want to go for just a little stroll outside, have a cigarette, like, we're going to be here for an hour or so while we wait for trains. This is actually the 3rd longest train journey in the world you can do. The other 2 are out of Moscow. This one is 4,000 kilometers long, around 4 days and around 100 hours. Mine was 103. Got off at Union Station in Toronto, grabbed my bags, and went inside to baggage claim. It was the first time I've ever actually been into Toronto proper, so it was really cool to be there. It's right under the CN Tower where the station is, so that's a really cool view as soon as you get out. Go down to baggage claim and get your bag. Then I went outside, and then I'm also realizing the Blue Jays game just ended. So traffic was a little crazy down there. The Ubers were a little tough to get, but eventually I got my Uber and got to my hotel, which is a really nice spot that I stayed in. And then of course I spent a few days in Toronto, did the Hall of Fame, did Niagara Falls, did the CN Tower Edge Walk, which I would highly recommend. And then I saw some wicked cars, which just super rare, and I was very privileged to see those cars. Also getting Toronto was really nice because then I got an actual bed for the first time in 4 nights and a shower, which was much needed. Basically all I would do was just put some pit stick on and hope I didn't stink too bad. But talking to some of the other people in the train, they were also the same situation as me. It wasn't like you were sweating around, you weren't able to run around or do push-ups anyways, so hopefully your BO wasn't too bad. I don't think mine was. I never got any complaints. It was really nice to have that shower. I think I stood in it for about half an hour, just rinsing myself completely all the time. And then I downloaded some pictures, and then I just went to bed, and it was really, really nice to sleep in an actual bed for the first time. Would I do it again? Maybe, but the economy was still pretty rough. Like, it was still fun, but I'd rather have a bed, really, and just maybe try with the other classes. But I would 100% recommend it to anyone. If you have kids, it's gonna be a little tougher, of course, because they're not really anything to do. But it was such a fun experience, and I would really recommend that Vancouver to Edmonton bit. That is the spot just to see. Like, the mountains are so gorgeous any time of year, and no cell service, which makes it really nice too. It was so fun. It was an economy, so it was what it was. So that was my train journey across Canada on the Canadian, Vancouver to Toronto. 4,000 kilometers, 103 hours. No shower, no bed, but it was well worth it. It's nice to check that bucket list off. Until you see you next time, take care. Have a good night.